So imagine you decide to host a dinner party, like a really big one.
Okay, I'm with you.
You want it to be absolutely spectacular. So instead of just shooting a quick text to your friends asking, what they actually want to eat, you just disappear.
Right. You just go totally off the grid.
Exactly. You vanish for 6 months. You empty your savings account. You hire this private sous chef. You import like these crazy expensive white truffles from Italy.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And you painstakingly craft this massive, ridiculously expensive 5-course Wagyu beef banquet.
Sounds amazing, honestly.
Right. It sounds incredible.
Yeah.
Until the night finally arrives. You set this beautiful table, you open the doors, your guests sit down, and then you discover they are all vegans.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is just a devastating scenario because you've burned all your resources, all your time. And I mean, you've produced something that is technically flawless, but it has absolutely zero market demand in that room.
Exactly. And here is the crazy thing. According to historical venture capital data, this exact scenario, building a flawless product that absolutely nobody actually wants, is responsible for 42% of all startup deaths.
That's almost half just from building the wrong thing.
It's staggering. It's not, dramatic market crashes or some massive corporate scandal. It's just quiet, expensive obsolescence. So, welcome to this deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today, our mission is to completely dissect what is arguably the most critical, the most expensive, and honestly, easily the most misunderstood operational junction in venture building.
We are talking about the minimum viable product, right? The MVP.
Yes, the MVP. Okay, let's unpack this. Because whether you are this insanely curious tinkerer, building something in your garage, or you are a seasoned founder prepping for a massive launch, this deep dive is going to completely rewire how you think about building and scaling ideas.
It really will. And to do that properly, we are pulling from this remarkably comprehensive masterclass document. It's called the MVP Framework. Start small, scale fast.
And this document comes directly from StartupLanes, which, if you don't know, is this massive global business ecosystem.
Yeah, they are huge. We are talking about a network that spans 56 cities across 15 different countries.
Right. And they have facilitated something like $111 million in institutional funding. So they have seen exactly what works and what fails on a massive global scale.
And the driving force behind all these insights is Dr. Shishir Gupta. He is the founder and CEO of StartupLanes.
The guy's resume is ridiculous.
It really is. I mean, he holds a PhD in venture capital, an LLB in corporate law, and an MBA in finance. And, when you operate at that volume, analyzing thousands and thousands of companies, you really stop looking at startup success as this mystical art form.
It becomes a hard science.
Exactly. It becomes a hard science.
Which brings us right back to that 42% failure rate. Because before we even get into the mechanics of how to build an MVP, I feel we have to completely redefine what an MVP actually is.
Oh, absolutely. The term gets thrown around in corporate meeting rooms so much now.
It's lost all its meaning. I hear people use it all the time to just mean, a really bad, buggy version of my software.
And that is probably the single most dangerous misconception in tech today. We really have to move away from that abstract theory and establish some hard rules.
Right.
So Dr. Shishir Gupta sets the foundation with this really specific directive. He says an MVP is not a half-baked product.
Okay, then what is it?
He calls it a fully baked hypothesis testing engine.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, the primary goal isn't immediate revenue. The goal is eliminating ignorance at maximum velocity.
Eliminating ignorance at maximum velocity. I mean, that shifts the entire paradigm, doesn't it? You aren't building a product at all. You are literally just building a tool to harvest data.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this philosophy has actually been building for decades. Like if you go back to 2006, Steve Blank introduced this concept of customer development, which was a direct counter to traditional product development.
Because up until then, the standard practice was what? Writing a massive business plan.
Oh, yeah. You'd write a 100-page business plan, you'd lock yourself in a building for 2 years, and then execute this massive, expensive PR launch.
The Wagyu beef banquet.
Exactly. But Blank's whole argument was, there are no facts inside your building, so get outside. Big companies execute known business models, but startups are really just searching for one.
So you have to validate before you actually build anything.
Right. And then Eric Reyes comes along in 2011 with the Lean Startup. He introduces the famous build, measure, learn feedback loop.
Right, the classic loop.
Yeah. And he defined the MVP as the version of a new product that lets a team collect the maximum amount of validated learning about customers with the absolute least effort.
And then there's Ash Maurya, right, with the whole problem-solution fit thing.
Yes, founders inherently just want to play with their solution. They love the code, they love the features, but Maurya pointed out you have to actually fall in love with the customer's problem instead.
Which makes sense.
And then Marty Kagan added this layer of de-risking value risk first. You know, you could have usability risk, like can the user figure it out? And feasibility risk, can we actually code this thing?
Right.
But if you don't solve value risk, as in do they actually care about this at all, the other risks simply do not matter. The elegance of your code is completely irrelevant if the product is useless.
Okay, I want to unpack this for a second because I need to push back on Eric Ries's famous loop.
Okay, go for it.
If the loop is literally called build, measure, learn, and it literally starts with the word build, why does the StartupLanes framework tell us not to build software right away? I mean, that feels like a massive contradiction.
It does. And honestly, that is the great paradox of the lean startup loop. It trips up thousands of founders every year.
Because they just start coding?
Exactly. Visually, the loop is drawn left to right, build, then measure, then learn. But in actual operational practice, you have to execute it in reverse.
Wait, really? You execute it backward?
Yes. First, you identify what you critically need to learn. What is the single riskiest assumption that could just kill your entire business?
Okay.
Once you identify that assumption, you figure out how to measure it. What specific quantitative data point would definitively prove or disprove that assumption?
Got it.
And only after you know the exact metric you need do you figure out what to build. And what you build is not the final product. You build the absolute minimum asset required to get that specific data point.
You are engineering a test, not a solution.
Precisely.
That makes total sense.
Okay.
You build a test to find out if they are vegan before you spend 6 months cooking Wagyu beef.
Exactly.
And a huge part of figuring out that demand involves just, talking to people. The StartupLanes source brings up Rob Fitzpatrick's book, The Mom Test, which I think is absolutely fascinating when it comes to human psychology.
It is so essential. The core premise of the mom test is that if you ask someone, hey, would you buy this idea I just spent 3 months working on? They are almost certainly going to lie to you.
Right, just out of sheer politeness. Nobody wants to look an excited founder in the eye and say, yeah, your baby is really ugly.
Exactly. So Fitzpatrick says you must never ask about future promises. Asking something like, would you pay $10 a month for this? Is a completely useless question.
Because they'll just say yes to make you go away.
Right. Instead, you have to ask about past behavior. You say, tell me about the last time you experienced this problem. How did you try to solve it? How much money did you actually spend trying to fix it?
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, because if they haven't actively spent time or money trying to fix that problem in the past, they are definitely not going to start just because you wrote some code today.
Okay, so if the goal is to validate learning, and we aren't supposed to spend 18 months writing heavy code, what are the actual vehicles here? Like, how do we get this data in the real world?
This is where it gets really fun.
Yeah. The StartupLanes document outlines 7 core MVP archetypes backed by all these crazy real-world case studies. And looking at these conceptually really reveals the kind of hacks that early founders use.
Let's start with the theme of faking the back end.
Yes, let's do it.
This is where we see the Wizard of Oz MVP and the Concierge MVP. The psychological mechanism here is just creating the illusion of a fully functional product while executing everything manually behind the scenes.
The Zappos story is the ultimate Wizard of Oz case study. I love this one. It's 1999. Nick Swinburne believes people will buy shoes on the internet.
Which was a wild thought back then.
Totally. Conventional wisdom said this was impossible because people absolutely had to try shoes on to check the fit.
Right. So if he followed the traditional model, how would he test this? He would have raised millions of dollars, leased a massive warehouse, built complex inventory management software, and negotiated these huge bulk supply contracts with Nike and Adidas.
Just a massive upfront burn. But he didn't do any of that. Instead, he just walked down to the local shoe stores in Boston with a digital camera.
Just a normal camera.
Yeah. He took photos of the shoes sitting on the store shelves and uploaded them to a very basic static website. To the user, it looked like this massive, sophisticated e-commerce portal.
But there was no back end.
None. When a customer clicked buy, Nick would literally walk back to the shoe store, buy that exact pair of shoes with his own personal money at full retail price, take them to the post office, and ship them to the customer.
It's just incredible. Think about what he is actually validating there. He is proving that an internet user will put their credit card into a form to buy footwear sight unseen.
He is the human algorithm.
Exactly. And yes, he is losing money on every single transaction because he is paying retail plus shipping. But he isn't trying to be profitable yet. He is eliminating ignorance.
Right.
He proved the market demand without holding a single box of inventory in a warehouse.
And Zappos eventually sold to Amazon for $1.2 billion.
Not a bad return on some digital photos.
Not at all. And that same manual ethos applies to the concierge MVP, which is slightly different. Because instead of hiding the manual labor like the Wizard of Oz, you actually make the manual bespoke service the product itself. You purposely do things that do not scale.
Airbnb is the classic concierge example. Back in 2007, Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia couldn't afford their San Francisco rent.
A tale as old as time.
Right. And a massive design conference was in town, so all the hotels were booked solid. So they bought 3 inflatable air mattresses, set up a super simple blog called Airbed and Breakfast, and manually hosted 3 guests in their own living room.
They didn't build a complex two-sided marketplace algorithm. They literally just cooked them breakfast.
Exactly. They just proved that a stranger would pay money to sleep on another stranger's floor.
And we see this across so many industries. Like, look at DoorDash. The founders were students at Stanford, and they wanted to test food delivery.
So they built a logistics app.
No. They launched a static website called PaloAltoDelivery.com. They just uploaded PDF menus from local restaurants and put their personal cell phone number at the very bottom of the page.
Oh, I love the logistics of this. So when someone wanted food, they didn't get an app notification. They dialed the founders directly.
Literally. The founders would take the call, jump in their cars, drive to the restaurant, buy the food, and deliver it themselves. They were doing like 50 manual deliveries a day while still going to classes.
But the data they got from that is invaluable.
Oh, totally.
It allowed them to understand all the exact friction points. Like how long food actually takes to cook, how parking works at different restaurants, how customers react to delivery fees. And they learned all of this before they ever wrote a single line of a dispatch algorithm.
And Naval Ravikant did the exact same thing with AngelList. He wanted a platform connecting founders to angel investors.
Yeah.
But before building a social network, he just used manual email blasts. Yeah, he would read a pitch, pick up the phone, call an investor to verify they were accredited, and manually curate the introductions via email. He only finally wrote code when the manual emails became physically impossible for him to keep up with.
That is so smart. And it transitions us really nicely to the second major theme of archetypes, which is testing pure intent. This is the smokescreen MVP, or the demand test.
This is essentially building the storefront before you even have the store.
Exactly. Buffer is the textbook case here. Joel Gascoigne wanted to build a tool that let you schedule social media posts across the day.
Very useful.
Very. But before spending weeks coding all the complex API integrations with Twitter and Facebook, he just built a 2-page website. Page 1 explained the value proposition with a button that said plans and pricing.
And when you click that, it obviously didn't take you to a working app.
Right. Page 2 simply showed 3 pricing tiers: free, $5, and $20 a month. If a user clicked one of the paid tiers, a little form popped up saying, "Hello, we aren't quite ready yet. Enter your email to be notified when we launch."
Now, I feel like some people listening might think, wait, isn't that just tricking the user?
It's not a trick. It's a vital measurement of intent. He wasn't collecting their actual credit card numbers. He was tracking how many people navigated from reading the idea to actively deciding they wanted to spend money on it.
Measuring behavior, not promises.
Exactly. When hundreds of people clicked the paid tiers, he knew with absolute certainty that he had a viable business model. And only then did he spend a weekend actually coding the first functional version.
Zynga took this to an absolute extreme with their Facebook games.
Oh, this story is wild.
Yeah. Mark Pincus would literally run banner ads on Facebook for games that did not exist. He'd mock up an image of like a virtual farming game or a mafia game, run the ad, and just see which one got the highest click-through rate.
And whichever one they built.
Exactly. The winning ad dictated which game his developers actually spent time building.
It is brilliant capital allocation. I mean, why spend millions animating a complex farming game if the data shows users actually want to play a mafia game?
Right. Then there's the third theme of these archetypes, which is selling the vision before it exists. This covers the explainer video and the crowdfunding MVPs.
Dropbox is the legendary case study for the explainer video. Back in 2007, Drew Houston had a massive technical problem. He wanted to build seamless, cloud-based file synchronization.
Which is incredibly hard to do.
Right. Writing the code to make that work invisibly across Windows, Mac, and Linux involved overcoming immense latency and deep kernel-level engineering challenges.
So you couldn't just build a quick and dirty functional MVP for that.
No, because the entire core value of Dropbox was that it worked flawlessly in the background. If the MVP was buggy and deleted people's files, the company would die immediately.
So what did he do?
Instead of spending a year writing the full production code in a vacuum, he built a very simple, buggy prototype that only worked on his specific machine. And he just recorded a 3-minute video of his screen narrating how it would work for the user. He even strategically layered in these inside jokes and references tailored specifically for the Hacker News community, which was his target audience of early adopters.
That's brilliant marketing.
Yeah, and he posted the video, and the Dropbox waitlist exploded from 5,000 to over 75,000 users literally overnight.
Wow.
He captured massive market demand without writing the cross-platform architecture, and that allowed him to walk into Y Combinator and raise capital with irrefutable proof of product-market fit.
And Pebble did the exact same thing with hardware, using the crowdfunding MVP archetype. In 2012, Eric Mijakovsky had designed an early smartwatch. But hardware venture capitalists just wouldn't touch it. They said nobody wanted a computer on their wrist.
Which is funny to think about now.
Right. So he just sidestepped the VCs completely. He built one single physical prototype that looked decent, filmed a highly polished video demonstrating its potential, and put it on Kickstarter, asking for $100,000 to fund the first manufacturing run.
And what happened?
He ended up raising over $10.2 million from 68,000 backers in 30 days.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah, it provided non-dilutive capital to manufacture the watch, but more importantly, it proved global consumer demand before he ever signed a single factory contract.
Which is the whole point.
Right.
And that brings us to the final theme of these archetypes, which is radical simplification. The single feature laser, the piecemeal, and the unbundled MVPs.
Uber is the perfect example of the single feature laser. When Travis Kalanick and Garrett Camp launched Uber Cab in 2010, the app didn't have UberX, it didn't have dynamic surge pricing, you couldn't split fares.
There was no rating system, right?
Nope, no ratings. I think people forget how incredibly basic it was. You couldn't even track the car on a map originally.
Really?
Yeah, it was literally an SMS-based dispatch system exclusively for licensed black car drivers in a tiny radius of San Francisco.
Wow, they just ignored all peripheral features to solve one specific pain point perfectly. Push a button, get a black car. That core mechanic had to be validated before anything else mattered.
And then the piecemeal MVP is basically just stitching together existing software so you don't have to write any code at all. Like Andrew Mason, he started Groupon as just a standard WordPress blog.
Just a blog.
Just a blog. When a group deal hit its tipping point, he literally generated the PDF coupons using a program called FileMaker and then manually emailed them to buyers via a standard Apple Mail client.
Just totally pieced together. And
Yeah.
finally, you have the unbundled MVP. This is an incredibly powerful strategy where you look at a massive, clunky platform like Craigslist and you identify one specific use case that is currently messy and frustrating.
Okay.
Then you extract that single use case and build a dedicated, superior experience just for that. Which, coming full circle, is exactly what Airbnb did. They unbundled the short-term housing section of Craigslist.
Okay, looking at all 10 of these companies, Dropbox, Zappos, Buffer, Zynga, Airbnb, AngelList, DoorDash, Pebble, Uber, Groupon. What strikes me is that not a single one of them started with complex engineering.
Not one.
They all acted as human algorithms first. They conserved their capital and focused entirely on behavioral psychology. Will the user click? Will the user pay?
That is the defining trait of a successful early-stage founder. However, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to contextualize this for the modern era.
Right.
The source document makes a critical pivot here, because hearing about a 2008 Dropbox video or a 1999 Zappos website is great history, but the landscape has fundamentally transformed.
Yeah, it's not 2010 anymore. Software is literally everywhere. Users are utterly spoiled by beautifully designed apps now.
And this is where Dr. Shishir Gupta and StartupLanes introduced their modern 3-tier validation model. Because, in 2011, you could launch a crude, buggy, ugly web app. Software was scarce. People would put up with immense friction just to get the utility.
But today, thanks to AI coding assistants, massive open source component libraries,
Mhm.
global dev shops, the marginal cost of creating software is basically zero.
Right.
Which means the barrier to entry is zero. Which means user tolerance for a broken user interface is also zero.
Precisely. The consensus across modern developer communities like indie hackers is that a shitty MVP is just no longer an acceptable strategy. You can no longer launch something that looks like it was coded in a basement over a weekend.
So what's the alternative? The document uses two terms here that I think are vital. MAP, which is minimum awesome product, and MLP, minimum lovable product.
Right.
What this means mechanically is that users don't just buy viability anymore, they buy delight. You cannot launch a buggy interface with 10 mediocre features. You have to pick one single feature and execute it flawlessly.
Think of it like a specialized food truck.
Yes, here's where it gets really interesting. If you open a food truck, you do not serve a massive 10-page menu of mediocre diner food.
Yeah.
A massive menu where everything tastes just okay is a broken, full-featured app. Instead, you serve one incredibly delicious, perfectly spiced taco. That one perfect taco is the minimum lovable product. You prove that people will line up around the block in the rain for that one taco before you ever think about adding burritos or nachos to the menu.
And while you are testing that taco, you have to be highly vigilant against what StartupLanes defines as the compliment trap.
Oh, this is the most insidious psychological trap for founders.
It truly is. The compliment trap happens when you show someone your prototype or your landing page and they say, wow, this looks amazing. This is a great idea. Let me know when it launches.
And as a founder, your ego just inflates. You think, boom, validated. They love it.
But you haven't validated anything. They're just dismissing you politely without hurting your feelings. The modern operational reality is brutal. A $1 credit card transaction is worth 1,000 waitlist emails.
Wow.
An email address costs a user nothing. A compliment costs nothing. If they will not pull out their wallet and experience the friction of a transaction, you do not have a business. You just have a sunk cost fallacy waiting to happen.
So how do we systematically avoid that trap? We have the theory, we understand the archetypes, and we know the modern standards of the minimum lovable product.
Right.
Section 4 of the StartupLanes Masterclass provides the actual 30-day blueprint. If you have an idea for a business, this is your exact week-by-week chronological playbook.
It is a masterclass in aggressive constraint. Week 1 is purely about problem definition. You map out your core assumptions using a lean canvas.
Okay.
But the operational heavy lifting of week 1 is executing 15 to 20 customer interviews using the strict principles of the MOM test we discussed earlier.
Right. So you are not pitching your idea, you are diagnosing their pain.
Exactly. You are asking, show me how you currently handle this workflow. Where does it break down? How much are you paying your current vendor?
Once you have that qualitative data, week 2 is scope pruning. This is where most founders fail because they just want to build everything. The framework demands you take your feature wish list and literally take a chainsaw to it. You group your ideas into 3 buckets. Must-have features, which should be only 10% of your list, should-have features, which are 30%, and nice-to-have features, which make up the remaining 60%.
And then you completely throw away the 60%.
Just ditch them.
You don't put them on a roadmap, you discard them. You focus solely on the 10% must-have core loop, and you build a high-fidelity, clickable prototype using a design tool like Figma.
Then we hit week 3, assembly. This is where you actually connect the plumbing. You set up your authentication so users can log in. You set up your database. You code that single core loop. And crucially, you integrate Stripe or a payment gateway.
The framework is absolute on this point. You do not launch without a mechanism to collect money. If you can't test payment friction, you aren't testing a business.
And finally, week 4 is launch. You instrument your telemetry, which is just a fancy way of saying you hook up your analytics to track every single click, and you execute a soft launch to the people you interviewed in week 1, or to a small wait list.
But the architecture of this 30-day sprint is governed by 3 unyielding strategic rules.
Okay, what are they?
Rule number 1 is the 30-day launch constraint itself. If your development timeline extends beyond 30 calendar days, you are no longer validating hypotheses. You are just indulging in feature creep.
What's fascinating about Dr. Shishir Gupta insisting on that 30-day cap is the psychology behind it. It's not just about getting to market fast. It actually operates as a psychological safety net for the founder.
How so?
Well, think about the sunk cost fallacy. The longer a founder spends building something in secret, the more emotionally attached their ego becomes to the code.
Oh,
If you spend an entire year of your life building a piece of software, and you launch it, and nobody uses it. Your brain will refuse to accept reality. You'll say, oh, they just don't understand it yet. We need to spend another year building an AI chatbot into it.
Ah, right. You become delusional because the cost of admitting failure is just way too high.
Exactly. But if you only spend 30 days building it, you aren't deeply emotionally invested yet. You can look at the terrible data shrug and say, okay, well, that hypothesis was wrong. Let's pivot and try something else next month.
That's a great point.
It forces you to confront the harsh reality of the market before your ego gets entirely intertwined with the solution.
That is profound. Which brings us to rule number 2, the 100 paying customer benchmark. Free signups are vanity metrics. Your MVP must secure 100 paying customers, or if you are running an ad-driven consumer model, 1,000 active daily users before you are allowed to invest in secondary features or attempt to pitch venture capitalists.
And rule number 3 is the cold metric kill switch. This takes all the emotion out of the process. If your landing page conversion rate is below 5%, your market positioning is weak.
Right.
If your day 30 user retention falls below 10%, your core experience lacks utility. The rule states that if you miss these benchmarks after 3 iterative tries, you kill the project completely or you drastically pivot.
Now, inside that 30-day sprint, while the founder is actively assembling the product, they are going to face a barrage of highly technical and user experience decisions.
Yeah, the weeds.
To navigate this, Dr. Shishir Gupta provides a massive 100-point diagnostic matrix. Let's dig into the mechanical logic of this matrix, starting with domain I technical scaffolding.
This is where we get into the heavy stuff, and it is so valuable. The very first mandate in domain I is monolithic architecture over microservices. Let's pause on that. What exactly is a microservice, and why is the framework telling us to avoid it?
Great question. A microservices architecture is a way of building software where every single function is its own independent mini application. So your user login is one service, your payment processor is another, your email sender is another, and they all talk to each other over a network.
And tech influencers on Twitter constantly talk about building with microservices and Kubernetes clusters, right?
Right.
They say it's how Netflix and Google scale to billions of users.
Exactly.
So isn't building a monolithic app where all the code is just jammed into one big database, setting yourself up for massive technical debt later?
That is exactly the trap. The StartupLanes philosophy counters this perfectly. Technical debt is a luxury for a startup that actually survives to see scale.
Oh, wow.
Building and maintaining a microservices architecture requires immense DevOps overhead. If you spend months building a perfectly scalable, distributed microservices architecture for a product that nobody ends up buying, congratulations. You just spent all your runway building a highly scalable ghost town.
Speed over premature scale.
Precisely. Look at Shopify. In 2006, they built their core e-commerce platform as a massive, monolithic Ruby on Rails application. Everything was in one place.
Really?
Yeah. That flawed monolithic structure is exactly what allowed them to ship updates incredibly fast for a decade, validating their market and growing to a billion-dollar valuation before they ever needed to worry about modularizing their code.
The matrix also highlights using no-code backends for initial validation. The case study here is Plato, which connects engineers with mentors.
Right.
Before they wrote custom backend software, they literally ran their entire database on Airtable and used Zapier to automatically connect it to their front end. They were generating real revenue using off-the-shelf software duct taped together.
It also mandates using managed cloud infrastructure or PaaS platform as a service like Vercel or Heroku.
Right, so instead of configuring your own Linux servers and dealing with security patches and load balancing, you just pay a platform to handle the hosting so you can focus entirely on your product code.
Exactly. The matrix also demands using feature flags, a technique pioneered heavily by Facebook.
How does a feature flag work?
Think of it like a massive soundboard in a recording studio. A feature flag allows developers to deploy new code into the live application but keep it turned off for the general public.
Oh, I see.
Then they can flip the switch and turn the feature on for just 5% of users to see if it causes any bugs or behavioral shifts without risking breaking the app for the other 95%.
That significantly lowers the risk of deployment.
Yeah.
The matrix also lists automated CI/CD pipelines, continuous integration, and continuous deployment like GitLab, meaning the moment a developer finishes writing a piece of code, it is automatically tested and pushed live without manual intervention.
Right.
And finally, client-side rate limiting.
This is basic API defense. OpenAI is the prime example here. During the initial massive boom of ChatGPT, They had to heavily enforce rate limiting on their public APIs.
Meaning what exactly?
This means capping the number of requests a single user or IP address can make per minute. If you don't build this into your MVP, a single malicious bot or just a poorly written script from one user can overload your servers and crash your product for everyone else.
Okay, moving from the back end to the user screen. Domain 2 is product scope and UX. Point 21 is the single core value loop principle. We see this with Instagram.
Oh, yes.
People forget that Instagram originally started as an app called Burb Scope, which was a check-in app with gaming elements, earning points for hanging out with friends, and, oh yeah, you could also post photos.
It was incredibly cluttered.
Right. So they looked at the data, realized the only feature people actually engaged with was the photo sharing, and they ruthlessly pruned everything else.
WhatsApp did the exact same thing. Jan Koum initially built WhatsApp purely as an app to display status updates next to people's names in your address book, like, my battery is low, or I'm at the gym, can't talk.
Wait, it wasn't even a messaging app.
No, but users started using the status updates to ping each other back and forth in real time. Koum observed this behavior, pruned the original concept, and pivoted entirely into fast text messaging.
The Matrix also emphasizes zero-state UX optimization. This is a brilliant psychological insight. The zero state is what a user sees the very first time they log into your app. When they have no data, no friends, no projects, the screen is empty.
And if you just drop them onto a blank dashboard, they freeze. They experience cognitive overload, and they leave.
Trello solved this masterfully. When you sign up for Trello, you don't get a blank workspace. They pre-populate a welcome to Trello board filled with tutorial cards that tell you to drag and drop them. They teach you the software by forcing you to use the software.
Which ties directly into minimizing TTFE, time to first value. This is the stopwatch running from the moment a user creates an account to the moment they experience the core benefit of the product. Canva is the undisputed king of this metric. Within 2 clicks of signing up, you are literally inside a preloaded template designing a graphic. There is no endless onboarding wizard delaying the aha moment.
Domain the third covers demand validation. This is the top of the funnel. How do you actually get people to look at the thing you built? The Matrix outlines several methods. First, paid performance search ads to measure pure intent. Angelists use Google ads on highly specific queries to find their first users.
You also have waitlist viral loops. Robinhood executed this flawlessly. When you signed up for early access to their trading app, you were placed at number 50,000 in line. But they gave you a referral link.
Oh, right.
For every friend you invited who signed up, you moved up 1,000 spots in the queue.
It gamified the waitlist and turned every single user into an active marketer for the company. The Matrix also mentions fake door testing, which is similar to the smoke screen, but used inside an existing product.
Etsy is famous for this. If their product team had an idea for a new feature for sellers, instead of spending weeks coding the back-end database logic, they would just design the UI button and put it in the seller dashboard.
And when a seller clicked it,
a modal popped up saying, "We are thinking about building this feature. Would you use it? Send us your thoughts." By measuring exactly how many sellers clipped the fake door, Etsy knew exactly which features were worth the engineering budget.
that is so incredibly lean. You can also use direct competitor interception. The project management tool ClickUp did this aggressively. They ran highly targeted ads against search terms like Asana alternatives.
Smart.
They weren't trying to educate the market on why project management software is good. They were capturing users who already used the incumbent software, but were frustrated enough to Google for an alternative.
And finally, community-led validation. Loom, the video messaging tool, launched their early bare-bones Chrome extension directly on Product Hunt. They went straight to a concentrated community of tech early adopters who are notoriously vocal and willing to give unfiltered feedback on early UX friction.
Okay, so domains 4, 2, and 3 get the product built and get users in the door. But section 6 of our deep dive looks at domains 4 through 6 of the StartupLanes Matrix.
Yeah.
This covers unit economics, analytics, and legal.
Yeah.
Because once the product is live, how do we track if the business model actually mathematically functions?
Domain 4 is unit economics. Point 61 is blunt. Charge money on day one. The software company Basecamp did this. They launched exclusively as a paid product with no free tier.
But wait, if you are a totally unknown startup with a buggy day one product, won't charging money just drive your early adopters away to established, polished competitors?
If your product is a nice-to-have vitamins app, yes. But if you are solving a bleeding neck pain, a severe operational problem, the customer will pay for a bandage, even if it's not a perfectly sterilized hospital bandage. Charging money forces the issue of value immediately. It filters out the noise of free users who will demand features but never convert to revenue.
That makes a lot of sense. Once you are charging, you have to relentlessly monitor your CAC versus LTV ratio. Let's break that math down.
CAC is customer acquisition cost. How much do you spend on sales and marketing to acquire one paying user? LTV is lifetime value. How much gross profit does that user generate for you before they cancel?
So if I spend $10 on Facebook ads to get one user, my CAC is $10. If they pay me $5 a month and stay for an average of 10 months, my LTV is $50.
Exactly. And the golden rule of venture economics is that your LTV needs to be at least 3 times higher than your CAC. If you spend $10 to acquire them, they must generate at least $30 in lifetime value. If your CAC is $10 and your LTV is $12, your margins are too thin to ever scale the business.
And tied to that is the payback period target.
Yeah.
This is how many months it takes for that user to generate enough profit to pay back the $10 you spent to acquire them.
Right.
The monitoring platform Datadog was famous for maintaining a payback period of under 12 months. This is crucial because a short payback period allows you to recycle your cash efficiently. If it takes 3 years to pay back your acquisition cost, you will run out of cash and die before you ever see the profit.
The Matrix also warns against cost-plus pricing. Let's say it costs you $2 in server fees to host a user, so you charge them $3. That's cost-plus. You should be using value-based pricing.
The case study here is Veeva, which built CRM software specifically for the pharmaceutical industry. They didn't look at their server cost to determine their price.
What did they do?
They looked at the fact that their software helped pharmaceutical sales reps close million-dollar contracts. They priced their software based on the massive financial value they were generating for the client, allowing them to capture incredibly high margins.
Moving to domain V retention and analytics, this is where you identify the aha moment.
This is the exact action a user takes where the value of the product suddenly clicks in their brain and they become a lifelong user.
For Slack, the team messaging app, they analyzed their data and discovered a magic threshold. If a company signed up and exchanged a total of 2,000 messages across the team, their long-term retention rate skyrocketed to 93%.
2,000 messages was the aha moment.
Precisely. Once they knew that, they stopped caring about how many teams created an account. They optimized their entire onboarding, their emails, their tutorials around getting a new team to hit that 2,000 message mark as fast as physically possible.
And you visualize this retention using a cohort retention curve. Imagine a line graph. If 100 people sign up on Monday, that's your cohort. If you check back a month later and only 10 are still using it, and by month 3, the line drops all the way down to 0, you have a leaky bucket. You are dead.
But if that curve drops from 100 to 40, and then it flattens out perfectly horizontally at 40 and stays at 40 month after month, that flat line is the mathematical proof that you have achieved product market fit.
You can also measure this qualitatively using the Sean Ellis Product Market Fit Survey. Instead of looking at behavioral data, you just ask your users a multiple-choice question. How would you feel if you could no longer use this product tomorrow?
The options are usually very disappointed, somewhat disappointed, or not disappointed. Sean Ellis found that if 40% or more of your users say they would be very disappointed, you have a sustainable, highly defensible business. If it's under 40%, you are still searching for a core utility.
And for measuring organic growth, the matrix points to the viral coefficient, also known as the K factor.
This is a mathematical formula that explains how things go viral. The formula is the number of invitations sent by each existing user multiplied by the conversion rate of those invitations.
So if I have one user and they invite 10 friends and 20% of those friends sign up, my K factor is 10 multiplied by 0.2, which equals 2.
Exactly. A K factor greater than 1 means exponential growth. Every one user brings in more than one new user. Dropbox famously nailed this mechanic by offering dual incentives. If you invited a friend, your friend got 500 megabytes of free storage, and you got 500 megabytes of free storage. It made the invitation feel like a gift rather than spam, causing their growth to compound organically without spending money on ads.
Finally, Domain 6 covers the legal and post-MVP reality, which a lot of founders ignore until it's too late. Point 92 is data privacy compliance GDPR in Europe and CCPA in California.
You cannot just slap an app together and harvest user data recklessly anymore. ProtonMail, the encrypted email service, is the model here. They built rigorous privacy and encryption architecture into their product from day one. Instead of seeing regulation as a hurdle, they used their compliance as their primary marketing tool, which established immense global trust.
You also need absolute clarity on intellectual property protection. A lot of startups use early freelance contractors to build their MVP. If you do not have airtight work-for-hire and IP assignment agreements signed before they write a single line of code, those contractors can legally claim they own a percentage of your company.
Yeah.
Yeah. Facebook faced massive, incredibly costly lawsuits in their early days, precisely because their early equity and contractor agreements were ambiguous.
And point 97 is a mandate on company culture. Founder-led customer support. The case study is Stripe, the massive payment processor. In the early days, the founders, Patrick and John Collison, personally sat at their laptops answering customer support tickets from developers.
It's the do things that don't scale mindset again.
Exactly. Many founders want to outsource customer support to a call center immediately so they can focus on strategy. But outsourcing support insulates you from the exact user pain points, the exact bugs, and the exact friction that you desperately need to be learning from to improve the product.
Now, what happens if you track all these metrics? The retention curve, the Sean Ellis survey, the unit economics, and the data clearly shows your MVP is failing. The matrix provides a precise pivot framework.
A pivot is a structured course correction designed to test a new fundamental hypothesis. The framework outlines 4 types. First, the zoom-in pivot. This is what Instagram did. You realize your product is too broad, but one single feature inside it is highly popular. You pivot to make that single feature the entire product.
Second is the zoom-out pivot. This is the reverse. You realize your single feature isn't enough to support a business, so you expand it into a broader platform to capture more of the user's workflow.
Third is the customer segment pivot. Your product works, but the people buying it are completely different from who you expected. You thought you were building software for college students, but it turns out corporate accounting departments love it. You pivot your entire marketing and pricing strategy to target the enterprise.
And fourth is the value capture pivot. This is changing how you charge. Maybe your subscription model is failing, so you pivot to a freemium model with ads, or a transactional model where you take a percentage of payments.
Synthesizing all of this dense material. What the StartupLanes matrix proves is that metrics are not just vanity scorecards to impress venture capitalists. They are the exact operational dials that tell you precisely when and how to execute a pivot. They are the instruments flying the plane when you're navigating through the fog of a new market.
This theory is incredibly robust, but to really see how these principles apply to highly specific, high-stress situations, we're going to dive into Section 7 of the source document.
The hotline.
Exactly. This is a look inside the StartupLanes Global Advisory Hotline. We have 10 real-world scenarios of founders calling in and asking Dr. Shishir Gupta for tactical advice. Let's group these conceptually, starting with founders wrestling with pricing and validation intent.
The first call in this theme is Marcus from Atlanta. He is building a B2B SaaS tool. He wants to know if his early feature set is polished enough to start charging money on day one, or if he should stay completely free for 6 months just to build up his user base and show traction to investors.
Dr. Gupta's advice echoes what we discussed earlier at Basecamp. He tells Marcus to charge money from day one. It comes back to the mom test. Free users will lie to you out of politeness. If your MVP genuinely solves an urgent operational pain for a business, they will gladly pay for a bare-bones, unpolished solution. If they won't pay a single dollar, you don't have a pricing optimization problem. You have a fundamental value problem.
We see a similar question about intent from Liam in Auckland. He is building a specialized online learning platform. He asks Dr. Gupta if running a smoke test landing page where a user clicks a buy now button for a course that doesn't actually exist yet is ethically sound, or if it will permanently destroy trust with his early audience.
Dr. Gupta reassures him that it is not only ethical, it is the responsible stewardship of capital. The key is the mechanism of the test. When the user clicks buy now, you don't secretly charge their card and fail to deliver. You immediately trigger a pop-up that says, wow, we are overwhelmed by the demand. Our current cohort is capped. But enter your email and you will be first in line when we open more slots.
You are measuring genuine purchase intent without tricking the consumer financially.
Exactly.
And rounding out this theme is Sebastian in London. He is thrilled because he spent 2 weeks running marketing campaigns and collected 5,000 waitlist emails for his new consumer app. He calls the hotline asking if this list of 5,000 emails is a valid proof of product market fit.
I love how blunt this response is. Dr. Gupta tells Sebastian that in the modern internet era, attention is not commerce. A waitlist email simply indicates passive curiosity. It takes 2 seconds to type an email into a box. He advises Sebastian to run a brutal test, email those 5,000 people today, and ask them to put down a $20 refundable deposit to secure their spot.
The math on that is staggering. If 200 of them actually pull out their credit card and pay the $20, you have a highly validated business. If 0 people pay, you don't have a business, you just have 5,000 casual onlookers.
Let's move to the second theme from the hotline calls: scope and focus. Kenji in Tokyo is building an employee wellness software for large corporations. He has a roadmap with 12 distinct sub-features, mapped out meditation trackers, step counters, sleep logs, etc. He wants to know how to prune the scope without making the product feel incomplete to an enterprise buyer.
Dr. Gupta advises him to rely on the single core value loop. He tells Kenji to interview HR directors, find the one single biggest operational headache they have, perhaps it's tracking gym reimbursements, and build only that. Defer the other 11 features indefinitely. One single feature executed with extreme speed and reliability creates delight. 12 half-baked features simply create bugs, cognitive overload, and churn.
Rohan in Bengaluru is dealing with a similar scope issue. He's building a B2B SaaS platform, and his early investors want to see multi-tenant admin dashboards and role-based access control built into his MVP pitch so they can visualize how it scales. He asks if he should delay his launch by 2 months to code these internal administrative tools.
Dr. Gupta's response is an absolute no. Do not delay a launch to build internal admin dashboards. If you need to manually change a user's permission, do it by writing a raw SQL query directly into your database. Focus 100% of your limited engineering bandwidth on the customer-facing value. Any savvy venture capitalist will actually respect that operational discipline over a shiny, unused dashboard.
The third theme is execution and tech choices. Alex in San Francisco is building an AI-driven platform that matches companies with customized corporate retreat venues. He asks, should we wait until our automated matching algorithms and AI recommendation engines are 100% complete before we open signups?
This is a classic case for the Wizard of Oz MVP. Dr. Gupta tells Alex to build a simple, beautiful front-end intake form. When a company submits their requirements, Alex and his co-founders should manually research venues, manually curate the retreat packages, and email them back, acting as the AI. Code the intake, but manually execute the matching until you fully understand what variables companies actually care about.
Hannah in Berlin is struggling with platform choice. She is building a service marketplace MVP and wants to know if they should hire developers to build custom, native iOS and Android applications for the launch.
Dr. Gupta strongly advises avoiding native mobile development for an initial MVP. Building native apps means you are maintaining 2 entirely separate code bases, which doubles your engineering spend. Plus, you get trapped in the Apple and Google App Store approval processes, which delays your ability to ship rapid updates.
So what's the alternative?
He suggests using a PWA, a progressive web app. It runs in the mobile browser but feels like an app. Speed of learning is your only competitive advantage. Don't give it up to App Store reviewers.
The fourth theme is trust and compliance. Dr. Lin in California is building in the health tech space. She points out that in healthcare, users in hospitals demand incredibly high security and reliability. How does she reconcile the concept of a minimum viable product with the demand for high user trust?
This is exactly where the framework shifts from the minimum viable product to the minimum lovable product, the MLP. Dr. Gupta explains that in health tech, regulatory compliance like high pay in the US is table stakes. You cannot compromise on security.
Right.
Therefore, the minimum aspect applies to the scope of features, not the quality of the code. The scope should be razor thin. Perhaps it only transmits one highly specific type of patient data, but that one core loop must be rock solid, high precision, and fully compliant.
Finally, we have the themes of scaling and pivots. David in Toronto asks a profound timing question. How long should we give an MVP to gain traction before deciding to officially pivot?
Dr. Gupta puts a strict 30 to 60-day cap on it post-launch. He tells David to watch his cohort retention curves obsessively. If those curves trend down to 0 after 60 days and you fail the 40% Sean Ellis rule, you must stop writing new features immediately. The market is telling you the core utility isn't there. Execute a pivot framework right then.
And our last call, Aaron in Singapore. He is building supply chain software and wants to launch across 3 different countries in Southeast Asia simultaneously to show massive market size to his investors.
Dr. Gupta warns him to resist premature internationalization at all costs. Launching in 3 countries means dealing with 3 different tax laws, 3 different currencies, and 3 different localized workflows. You will be drowning in administrative overhead before you even validate if the core software works. He tells Aaron to focus on winning a single, localized micromarket first.
Looking at those 10 scenarios, they perfectly encapsulate the entire StartupLanes philosophy. It is incredibly pragmatic, unsentimental, and purely focused on speed and data over ego and aesthetics.
It is the scientific method applied to business creation.
We spent this entire deep dive talking about the theoretical and operational ways to do this right. To really hammer the point home and understand the stakes, we need to look at what happens when a company breaks literally every single rule in the StartupLanes playbook.
Yes. We have arrived at the ultimate anti-MVP, the tragicomic tale of Juicero.
Oh man, let me set the scene. It's 2013. The Silicon Valley hardware hype cycle is peaking. Doug Evans, this highly charismatic founder, decides he is going to revolutionize the global juice market. He doesn't want to build a local juice stand. He wants to build a proprietary, cloud-connected, hardware-as-a-service ecosystem.
And immediately, he rejects the lean MVP approach entirely. Instead of going to a local farmer's market with a blender to test flavor demand, he decides to operate in total stealth mode.
He spends 3 full years building in total secrecy. 3 years. And the machine his engineering team builds, it is the absolute textbook definition of over-engineering. He insisted the machine have custom aircraft-grade aluminum latches.
For juicer.
It had a custom silicon chipset with an internal Wi-Fi module. It featured an optical QR code scanner specifically designed to read the expiration dates on the proprietary juice pouches.
And the mechanical pressing system itself exerted 4,000 pounds of electromechanical force. Evans would proudly brag in interviews that the machine had enough torque to lift 2 fully grown Tesla automobiles.
To press soft fruit. And because of his charisma and the massive engineering scope, he convinced top-tier venture capital firms, including Google Ventures and Kleiner Perkins, to invest $120 million into the company.
So after 3 years and $120 million, they finally launched this monument to complexity in 2016. The Juicero machine originally cost $699, though they later dropped the price to $400.
And you couldn't just put your own fruit in it.
Nope. You had to buy their proprietary pre-chopped produce packs, which cost between $5 and $8 each.
And the software locks were insane. If the machine was not actively connected to your home Wi-Fi network, it would completely refuse to press the juice. If the QR code scanner read that the pouch was expired by even 1 single minute, it locked up and refused to press the juice.
It was a closed ecosystem demanding immense friction and cost from the user. And then came the climax of the story, which is one of the most famous moments in modern tech history. April 19th, 2017.
The Bloomberg human hand test. 2 reporters from Bloomberg are investigating the company. They are looking at this $400 Wi-Fi connected machine, and they're looking at this heavy plastic pouch full of chopped fruits and vegetables. And they asked the simple rudimentary question that apparently nobody with $120 million had bothered to ask during the 3 years of stealth engineering.
Yeah.
What happens if you just squeeze the bag with your hands?
The hubris is just incredible when you look back on it.
So they set up a camera, they hold the Juicero pouch over a glass, and they just squeeze it as hard as they can. Within 16 seconds, the juice flows out perfectly. Squeezing the bag by hand yielded the exact same amount of juice of the exact same quality as the 4,000-pound force aircraft aluminum Wi-Fi connected machine.
Wow.
And the human hands actually did it faster than the machine's mechanical cycle.
Bloomberg published a side-by-side video of this test, and the internet absolutely exploded. The CEO tried to write a long defensive blog post about the value of the QR scanners, the food safety protocols, and the mess-free experience, but the illusion was dead. The market realized it was a $400 paperweight.
The fallout was incredibly swift. The company collapsed into bankruptcy just months later. They literally had to sell these beautifully designed, custom-machined aluminum presses at liquidator auctions for the price of scrap metal.
If we run Juicero through our StartupLanes 15-point anti-MVP checklist, they violated every law of venture physics. They spent 3 years developing instead of 30 days. They operated on the arrogant assumption that users wanted a complex tech gadget instead of validating if they just wanted fast, healthy juice. They spent $120 million of capital before acquiring real customer validation, instead of spending $5,000 to test the premise.
So synthesizing everything we've discussed today, from the Wagyu beef dinner to Zappos to the Matrix to Juicero, what does this all mean for you, the person listening right now?
It means that the market does not care about your engineering complexity. It does not care how many hours you stayed awake coding. Users buy outcomes. They buy solutions to their pain. They do not buy 400-pound force aluminum latches. If Doug Evans and Juicero had run a concierge MVP on day one, if they had simply delivered chopped juice pouches to 50 local beta testers in San Francisco and watched them interact with the product, they would have watched a customer squeeze the bag manually on the very first day.
Oh,
We
absolutely.
would have learned that human hands were sufficient, and they could have saved 3 years of their lives and $120 million.
It is the ultimate cautionary tale of ego over data. Which brings us all the way back to the core ethos of this entire deep dive and the foundational mission of StartupLanes and Dr. Shishir Gupta.
The ultimate test of an MVP is whether it shortens the feedback loop. You have to respect your most precious, non-renewable asset as a founder, and that asset is time. Build small, measure the quantitative data, learn from the behavioral psychology, and repeat the loop. Start small, scale fast.
If you are an early-stage founder listening to this, and you are seeking incubation, global networks, or you just want to make absolutely sure you have the operational discipline to not build the next Juicero, I highly encourage you to look up StartupLanes.com. Their track record of guiding founders through this exact gauntlet speaks for itself.
It truly does. The discipline of the MVP framework is what transforms venture building from a chaotic emotional gamble into a rigorous, predictable scientific process.
It's all about finding out what your guests actually want to eat before you spend your life savings cooking the banquet. Speaking of which, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to ponder. We spent this entire time applying the 30-day MVP constraint and the MOM test to startups, software, and hardware. But what if you applied this exact same framework to your personal life?
Oh, that is a fascinating application, de-risking your own life choices.
Exactly. Whether you are contemplating a massive career change, picking up an incredibly expensive new hobby, or making a major move to a new city, how can you build a minimum viable prototype of your next major life decision the next 30 days? How do you test the reality of that choice before breeding years of your own emotional capital on an assumption? Don't cook the 5-course vegan banquet for yourself without tasting the appetizer first. Keep validating, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.